In this lesson, we are going to still be simplifying denominators by adding or subtracting the fractions, but you'll notice that we don't have monomials anymore. We have binomials or trinomials. So anything besides monomials we're going to pop up with in this lesson. So when you look at number 3 here, we want to find a common denominator in order to subtract these fractions. Before I do that, to find the common denominator, because now we have two terms down here, this 4w is being subtracted from the 16, which makes that a binomial. So before I do anything, I'm going to have to factor my denominators completely. So in the first fraction on the denominator, I would take out a 4 to factor it. And then in my second denominator, I could take out a 2, because I have a greatest common factor. Now when looking at these two denominators, to find a common denominator, I need to use anything that is part of the denominator, and I use the biggest one if there's more than one kind. For example, we have two numbers. We have a 4 and a 2. So my common denominator between a 4 and a 2 would be a 4. So I've used those. And then I'm looking at my other part of my denominator. I have w minus 4. Excuse me. Since we have the same thing twice, that's going to be part of my common denominator, w minus 4. I'm not going to use it twice. There was just one in each of them. But there's my common denominator now between the two. So from here, I would ask myself, what changed from this denominator to this one? Nothing, right? It's the exact same. So that means nothing changes in the numerator. So I'm going to copy w plus 12. What changed from this denominator to this one? Well, the 2 became a 4, right? So I would have had to times by 2, which means I have to multiply my numerator by 2. So I would write that as 2 times w plus 4. As you're looking now, you can see that we have a common denominator, so I can go ahead and subtract these fractions. If you want, you can think of it as adding, as long as you distribute that negative. So I'm going to need to distribute the negative 2 to both terms here as I combine these fractions. So I would have w plus 12 minus 2w minus 8. All of that over the 4 times w minus 4. So I'm not done. I have to actually combine like terms now. So I would combine my w, so I'm going to add a w and a negative 2w and get negative w, and then 12 and a negative 8 would give me a plus 4. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And then I would see if there's anything that I could cancel top to bottom. You can think of this as being in its own parenthesis if that helps you. When I look at that, I notice that I have a w and a negative w, a 4 and a negative 4. So since they're both exact opposites, I could take a negative 1 out of here, which leads me to change those signs, and I would have the same thing. I'd have w minus 4. So now these can cancel, and I'm left with an answer of negative 1/4. So my variables completely canceled out. That can seem kind of confusing, so we're just going to keep doing a few of these so it hopefully helps with that. Number 4, I want you guys to try. So first you're going to factor both denominators and see if you can find the common denominator. It's very similar to our last problem we did, so hopefully you'll be able to follow that. So pause the video and do that one, please. So there's what I got when I took out the greatest common factor in both. So I have my common denominator as 15 times x minus 5. That's because between the numbers 3 and 5, the common denominator is 15. So let me go down one more step here. I would then see what changed from one denominator to the next, and you'll see that's what I multiplied the numerator and denominator by. And so I have that distributing happening with the red 3 and the red 5. And then as I go ahead and distribute, I distributed a negative 5 right away. So you don't see me do that, but this is really what I did. So you can see those like terms now are going to need to be added in my numerator. So as I do that, I would get negative 2x plus 10. And again, my denominator stays the same all the way through. Then I would try to reduce that negative 2x plus 10, which made I took out a negative 2. And then those x minus 5's cancel, so my final answer is negative 2/15. Hopefully that made sense to you. If not, remember you can always ask me tomorrow in class. The last two we're going to do then have trinomials as the denominator. So to start, I'm again going to factor my denominator. So I'm going to find factors of negative 10 when added together make negative 3. So that would be negative 5, positive 2. And then over here I'm going to find factors of negative 2 when added together make 1y. So that would be positive 2, negative 1. So as I'm finding my common denominator, anything that appears in the denominator has to be used. So I had a y minus 5 up here, has to be used. I had a y plus 2, has to be used. In my other denominator, I have a y plus 2 also. So since I already used that, I don't have to use it again. But I have the y minus 1. So that's my common denominator. So take a look at this for a second and see I used every single binomial that I had. I just didn't have to use it twice for y plus 2 because it appeared once in each denominator. Now just so you know, if it would ever have something like, let's say, y plus 2 squared, because there were two of them, I would have to have a squared in my common denominator. That might come up sometimes, so just make sure you're aware of that. But since it doesn't have that, it was just one of them, I wouldn't use that in this denominator. So now I would ask myself, what changed from one denominator to the next? Well, here I have the y minus 5, y plus 2, which is the same, but this y minus 1 is different. So I would have had to times this by y minus 1, which means I need to times this by y minus 1. So I'm just going to write that out. I know I'm going to have to FOIL this out, but I'm going to write it for now so you can see where I got those numbers from. What changed in my denominator and then my numerator stayed the same. From this denominator to the bottom one, everything's the same except the y minus 5. So that means I would multiply the top and bottom by y minus 5. So I have y times y minus 5 in my numerator. So take a look at that for a second and see if you can see where I got each of my, what I multiplied by. I was just seeing what changed from one denominator to the next. Once I've done this now, I have a common denominator. So I'm going to go ahead and FOIL that numerator. I would have y squared minus 5y minus 1y plus 5. And then I'll keep going because I can add these. So plus, and I'll distribute that y squared minus 5y. And all of that would be over the y minus 5, y plus 2, y minus 1. So my next step would be to combine like terms. So I have y squared plus y squared, which is 2y squared. Let's see, I'm going to cancel these as I go so it's easier to see. Negative 5y, negative 1y is negative 6y. Minus 5y would be a negative 11y. So those are gone. And then my only constant is that 5, so plus 5. Now, a lot of people would just box this answer in right now and call it good. But remember, something might cancel here. So I'm going to have to see if I can factor that numerator now. The 2y squared minus 11y plus 5. So I would have, let's see, I'm just going to keep my denominator the same because nothing's going to change there. I would have 2y and 1y. And they'd both have to be negative. Factors of 5 are only 5 and 1. So you can kind of see where you'd lay those. I'm just going to go 1 and 5. So check my outsides. I'd get negative 10. My insides are negative 1. So see how I get the negative 11y? This does factor. So now I see if anything is a common factor that I could cancel, like the y minus 5s. And you would have to reduce this. If you left your answer as above, you would lose points because you didn't reduce that fraction fully. So there is my final answer. Now, giving me an answer like this one is just like giving me this answer, 6/8. You're not allowed to do that because you know the answer is 3/4 reduced. So that's really what we're doing here, is you have to reduce it fully and take out any common factors to simplify it. And so that's where you're going to get this answer right here. Our last problem, I'm again going to let you try. So you go ahead and factor both denominators and see how far you can go all the way down. And make sure, please do this one. Pause the video. This is how you learn instead of just copying my notes. Pause the video. Really try this problem so you can see if you made any mistakes, and hopefully we can clear them up when you see me do the answer. So for 6, I factored both denominators, and this is what I got. So I would have found my common denominator to be x minus 4, x plus 3, and x plus 2. Very similar to our last problem. So here is what I would get when I choose what I'm multiplying by. And then when I go ahead and distribute that x and distribute that -3, oh, I decided to distribute them both, and now I'm going to have to distribute the negative. I did a little extra step here. You probably went straight to this, I'm hoping. If you didn't get a plus 12 here, you had to take a negative times a negative here. So that, sometimes people have a minus 12 there, so that's where that came from. So that plus 12 is important. So now when I combine like terms, I get this. So now you try to factor this. And when you factor it, you can't. You cannot factor this problem. So a lot of you probably factored this, which I kind of set you up for because I made it seem like you should be able to cancel something all the time. So this is actually my final answer. If you disagree with this answer, here's why it is. A lot of people try to factor that numerator into x minus 4x plus 3, but look at that last term. It's a positive 12, not a negative 12, so that actually wouldn't work. So for all of you who had the answer 1 over x plus 2, that's not right because this is a plus 12, so I can't factor it the way that you had tried. Let me know if you have any questions on this lesson tomorrow.